like different Black women, creative entrepreneurs, Black women that are into the arts, the creatives, anything that they're passionate about, their success journey and how they got there. Today we have Raven Irabor. Ew, she looks gorgeous, dripped in the green.
Yes.
You didn't even know about the background.
Yeah,
like,
it just worked out.
Serendipitous.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love a good serendipity moment.
Yes.
But yes, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you for having me.
Yes,
very
Raven.
Grateful.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm very grateful to be here.
Yeah. Okay. Raven is a filmmaker, a creative director, a muse, and so much more. She is multi-talented. Tell us a bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I consider myself a multi-hyphenate creative, working at the intersection of art, media, fashion, and film. And at those intersections, I play the role as a creative producer, creative director, filmmaker, art curator. I do some styling here and there, modeling, I'm getting into that, and creative strategy. So yeah, that's kind of like title-wise, the different titles that I take up in those spaces. But a lot of my work is focused on amplifying artists and creatives of the African diaspora. And I would say like my personal like aesthetic is a mix of like contemporary and historic, African diasporic, just like references, as well as like Black luxury, and specifically Black luxury for Black women. That's a lot of like what my aesthetic, I would say, is like. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love Black girl luxury moments.
Yes,
like,
yes.
we need more of that.
Yes, yes.
Yes. How did you get started in everything that you're doing right now? Like, where did you start, and how did you know that this was something you wanted to do?
Yeah, I guess professionally, like parts of it was more of the traditional path. Like I went to Syracuse, I majored in television, radio, and film, and I did a concentration in fashion and beauty, and I double minored in marketing and African American studies. So that altogether, it does like sum up a lot of like what I do present day. But I also, a lot of it is like networking, like art curating and things like that. Like I technically didn't study art. Like I studied media and like the media industry, but have always been interested in art. So just like networking with people, getting mentors, just being in the art scene and like developing those relationships to enter into that space more successfully. But I would say like media-wise, it was more traditional, because after college I worked at a production company, I was a PA, then I worked at a network for like 2 years. And while I was here, like just meeting with people, I was in like Scope of Work, which is like an amazing opportunity for young creatives of color in New York, and just like hustling around doing free shoots with people and just to build my portfolio. Then I moved to LA, so I've been there for 3 years now. I worked at a creative agency out there, then lost my job while I was out there, which was stressful as hell. Can I curse? Can I curse on this?
You could curse.
Oh, okay.
We could curse.
But yeah, I lost my job and I worked at a photo studio, which like honestly was like, ended up being one of like the best jobs ever, even though it was like the lowest paying job I've ever had.
Yeah, I feel like it's always like that though. Like
Yeah.
every time you leave a job, like something else is like, oh, here, this was really for you.
Yeah, exactly. It all like the journey and the stresses and the struggles like all work out, but it's just like in the moment you're like, God, why? Exactly. But yeah, worked at a photo studio. Then I worked at, then I was doing freelance stuff just to build my portfolio. I did like social media, like creative strategy, content strategy work for different brands, and production work. And then I worked at Blavity in the folklore for about 2 years.
Oh, really?
So I was a producer at both places. And then right now I work at a production company, and then I'm getting a new job soon. I start in a couple of weeks. So yeah, so that's like my professional like trajectory, but like on the side throughout all of that time I've just been building my personal portfolio of filmmaking and creative direction work and things like that. So I always say like the stuff on my portfolio is really what gets people interested in me versus like my like professional resume. And I've been like blessed to be able to like operate both spaces as like a professional in like the creative professional space, and then as like a creative individual.
Yeah, and as a brand, it sounds like you're an entire brand.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about this new job. Like, are you excited about it? What is it gonna look like for you in the future?
Yeah, I mean, this honestly, I will say like all of my other jobs, I'm grateful for all of them. They've all been beneficial in a lot of different ways, but I think, so as I mentioned, I worked at 2 spaces that were Black owned. And I've been also lucky that in my career, I've worked in a lot of Black owned spaces and women owned spaces, which is very rare for a lot of people.
That's beautiful.
But in those spaces, specifically the Black-owned ones, which was both Black women-owned spaces, they're like underfunded. So meaning that a lot of their employees are not being paid well, right? And that, you know, a lot of people will be like, I'd rather work for the white man because you're getting paid and you're able to operate and like live your life accordingly, right? So this job, I feel like is the first time I'd be able to like make a salary that like not only helps me, but like pays for like the studio that I was talking about. Like I can fund my studio myself. I don't need any outside vendors because I can pay for that. I can pay for, I'm like help my family. Like it's a really, really big opportunity for me. Don't put it in about me working. Yeah. Yeah, so that'll be my new job I'm getting, and I'm really excited. And I'll be working specifically on culture and community, so focusing on underrepresented groups for Instagram. So yeah.
Oh, first off, that's so lit.
Thank
and
you.
That's a nice way to step into Black girl luxury. Like, ooh, my own job,
Right.
my own place.
Yeah, exactly. So
nice.
things have been like just on the up and up, and I told you I moved into a new crib, so like I have a lot of light, and like things that like shout out to God. He's been doing his thing.
He's working in your favor.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
What are we looking forward to? Because there's a lot going on. So 2022, what's the big bang for you, or is it the job?
Now the job is funding the big bangs, I would say. Yeah. Because my goal is like in the next 3 years to be done with corporate America. I don't like corporate America. I don't support corporate America. I don't support all those things because it's not meant for Black people in the way that it, especially during COVID, has been just very inhumane. Like I've had like panic attacks since I've been working at my current job, and it's just because like working from home, like it has its luxuries, but like some places don't respect boundaries. Like, well, literally while I was on my flight here, I told them I had a hard out, but like they were working until 11 to deliver something, and then the next day still had to deliver it. My first week working there, I had to do a delivery that was like up until like 3 a.m. and I was in New York, and then still had to work on Saturday to get the delivery done. So like, yeah, the media world is like, it's cool, and it has, depending on like what you're trying to do, right? Like I'm not gonna knock it for everyone, but like for me and a lot of like Black creatives, it's just not sustainable. Like it's not meant for us. So my goal is like stack the coins I need to stack, take a year off, go to Africa.
Ooh,
and
what
then,
part of Africa you wanna go to?
I wanna live in Ghana.
Oh,
yeah, I love
that's gonna
Ghana.
be really nice.
Yeah. And then come back and open the studio and just do my own creative ventures, and like just everything is about amplifying and supporting Black creatives from all over the world. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I love how you just mentioned boundaries. That's very, very important. What are some new boundaries you started implementing in your life that enhance the quality of your life?
Yeah, I'm doing better with like my morning rituals. So like ensuring that like I don't try to like look at my phone, talk to people about work in the morning. Same thing with just like logging off, like at a certain point, it's like, all right, like I need to log off and like not really be active at work.
How do you discipline yourself to do that? Because sometimes I feel like that's a little easier said than done. Do you like have to walk away, put it in a different room? Like what kind of, do you set time limits on it?
Yeah, I have time limits on my phone. I mean, sometimes I like don't look at it, but at least it's like there to remind me like, okay, you should actually not be on your phone at this time, or you should be off a certain app. Like I have certain apps where I'm like, okay, you like, don't you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do that. I'm trying to think what other boundaries I've been setting. I think I've been also really focused on being vocal with like my needs in the moment. Like this is what I need, and I think a lot of like women specifically have been like helpful with like just showing me the value of doing that. So yeah, that's another boundary. Like if personal and professional, like this is what I need in this moment, and just being honest. Like again, like. I think corporate America forces you to be like this, like alt person. Like you have to show up in these spaces differently. And it's like, I'm a human. So like right now I'm stressed out. Like boss, I'm stressed out. Like I'm overwhelmed. Like that's the only way I can operate in this space if I'm honest with you about like where I'm at right now. Otherwise, like it's gonna like be worse for me. And then the work is not gonna get done. So if you would like the work to get done, you have to allow me to be honest in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Stick up for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned creating a network. You know, like when you first were starting, you mentioned like having the right relationships. What does that look like to have an intentional network?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, for me, I'm big on just like reaching out to people. Like when I first graduated from college, I would like DM brands and people like, hey, like this is my portfolio, this is what I do, and just connect with them that way. I use there's one thing that Joshua Kissy, the photographer, he tweeted, and he was like, a lot of creatives need to utilize LinkedIn more. And I know that like places that are deemed professional creatives feel like, I don't really like, I don't want to be in those spaces. But like LinkedIn has honestly been, like when he said that, I was like, yeah, that's been like very, very helpful for me. Just like finding people who's like, hey, you work in this space, you work at this company, you do this, and like I don't know anything about it, or I'm trying to get into it, and like messaging them, hopping on, like I do a lot of like virtual coffee sessions, like, hey, like I just want to like meet up with you, hear about what you do, like we're in the same space, we're, you know, existing in the same purpose, and I just want to like connect and build. I do a lot of that, so yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That sounds really good, like really intentional.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in the same department.
Yeah.
Same industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your self-care routine. So you mentioned having a morning routine, but how do you pour back into yourself? Because creativity and just being a creative entrepreneur and just the arts, everything that you're into is just a lot of output.
Yeah.
So how do you input?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm trying to do better at, and I will say that's something that, you know, again, with this new job that I'm excited about, because I'd have the financial means to like invest back into myself.
I love that you keep bringing it back to, I'm gonna have more money.
Yeah, because
more money is more
right,
abundant.
Amen. Because I think like a lot of people like, yeah, you know, finding different ways to save, but if your finances is like stretched to the max, you don't have the like leisure to save. Right? You just don't. So fun. Oh, you should pull back, and maybe you should stop, you know, getting your hair done, and maybe you should stop. And it's like,
less
why
coffees.
do I?
Don't
Yeah, less
get the daily
coffees.
coffee, like the
do
$2.50
laundry maybe
makeup.
once a month versus every other week when you actually need clean clothes. Like things like that. It's like, why do I need to cut back on things to survive versus like y'all just need to pay me more, or I just need to set my prices more? Because I think that's also something that I've learned. Is like what am I telling people my rates are? Like if I know that like I need to make this amount of money a month, then like this is my rate. And being confident in that, and that's hard to do. Like I'm saying it like as if it's easy, but it's very hard to be confident in like your rate, because a lot of people's gonna tell you, oh, that's too expensive, or like maybe like, you know, can you do it a little lower? And I think obviously you like negotiate what like seems fair to you, but at the end of the day, like trying to be really strong about what your rates are and working with people that respect those rates or respect the hours, right? Like let's say your rate is $2,000, right? But it's like, okay, I can do it for $1,000 if I work 10 hours. And it's like, all right, they align with you, you can only do 10 hours. And that seems fair, you know, and ensuring that you get the coins you need to pour back into yourself, to take those dance classes, to get a massage, to get facials. Like, again, we talk about Black Girl Luxury, like, yes, I want to get a facial. Like, I want an esthetician. I want to get a massage. I want to go to dance class. I want to take yoga classes. I want to go hiking. I want to do all those things. And I shouldn't feel like I have to compromise it because I'm a creative. Like, no. Tech people don't compromise their salary, so why do I have to?
Yeah, we don't. We don't have to.
Yeah.
Not at all. Okay, so I really admire that you mentioned confidence, right?
Yeah.
Confidence in setting your rates and setting your prices. For all the Black women out there, like what would you say is one thing that helped you build your confidence, your self-esteem, to say like the price is the price? Like how did you get there?
Yeah, so a couple of mentors of mine have given me these like rate documents, and I don't know how you guys are like sharing this, but if you guys want to like link some of the things I'm mentioning, I can send it to you and you can share it with the community. But
we could probably have it pop up.
Yeah. But yeah, I've done like some rate worksheets, and these worksheets like, you know, take into account what you need to survive, right? Like on a monthly basis. And when you look at your work, like, okay, this is not only something that I do for fun, but like the creativity that I'm producing into the world actually like is my means of survival. Like then you don't play around. It's like, no, like in order for me to eat, like I need to make this much money a month. So seeing it kind of broken down in that way was really, really helpful for me. I mean, I'm still learning on like, you know, how to vocalize it with people, but I think like seeing the numbers, and it does all the calculation for you. Like I didn't have to, I just plugged in like how, you know, my rent, my bills, all those things. And then like any sort of buffers, like, do you want to take vacations? Do you want to have 2 weeks? Like all those things that you want in your life, you plug it in, it does a calculation for me. So on the lower end, what you should be making an hour or a month, and then on the higher end. And then you can use that to be like, all right, well, for this client, I know that they don't have that much money, so I could give them a lower end part of the rate. Or for this client, I know that they have the funds, I'll give them that higher end of the rate.
So you could like create a balance and
yeah. So I would say, Exactly. Yeah, definitely. I definitely would encourage reading the room because sometimes it's like, you know, you have a friend and they're like, oh, I'm trying to do a shoot, I'm trying to do a music video, I'm trying to do whatever. Like, obviously, your friend is not like ABC. They don't have the same money as ABC. So, like, you know, just learn depending on the client, like what, you know, you should be offering. But still, if you don't feel comfortable, if they're like forcing you to go beyond something that you feel like is not gonna work for you, then like don't take the job.
You know what? I'm gonna be honest. I need to start doing that. I really don't operate like that. Like, I think it's a great idea to like look at your expenses, look at what you require, what's going to feel good for you, what is going to enhance the quality of your life, and then create a budget that way. I don't know if other creators do this, but I go according to my value and like how I show up and how I bring value to situations and people and experiences. Does that play a factor in how you set your price and your rate?
Yeah, I think that's really, really important, like figuring out like what value do you add into that space, into the work that you're doing. I think that also allows more so with the confidence side, because I feel like once you get the document together, then like if someone tries to play you, you know what your value is. You can communicate that, you know? Versus like if someone tries to play someone, then you're like, oh, maybe they're right. I don't really know.
Because I know my bills is this. So
so maybe I can, no, when you show up and you're like, no, like this is what I can offer. This is like my unique capabilities in comparison to my competitors. And then, you know, they have to respect that.
This is why I need.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is why you're coming to me, right? You're coming to me for a service, or maybe I'm coming to you, but you're open to my work and my capabilities. So this is why, like, these numbers make sense because of me, you know?
Yeah, so tell us about the creative hub that you want to open up. Like, how do you want to show up for more women, more black women, or just more black people in general?
Yeah. So like I was mentioning, like a lot of my personal work is around like amplifying the African diaspora. And with me being a multi-hyphenate and part of this, I guess, conversation about like money and your value and like how do you, I guess, show up in these different spaces, like my thing is like, why not just create my own space where I can just show up in the way that I want to and explore different parts of me that I want to, while also creating a hub that like kind of like brings the creators of the African diaspora together, whether you're from Nigeria, Ghana, Brazil, Puerto Rico, London, LA, New York. You know, if you come to Harlem, which is where I want to open it, the first place, you know, when you come there, like this is a space where you can connect with other black creatives. So offering like my full service production services to people, or you can rent out the space to like shoot any videos or photo stuff. And then it'll also be a gallery space because I'm getting into art curating right now. So being able to curate showcases for people, and then it'll kind of like expand from there. But that's like top level what I am envisioning for the space.
What are some black women that you look up to? Like, who would you like to give your flowers to? And just real quick, while I'm asking you this question, I'm like, I want to give you flowers. Like, because I think what you're doing is really amazing. It's very inspiring. I'm giving you your flowers. Who would you give your flowers to? Like maybe 3 or 4 women?
Yeah, definitely got to shout out to my mom because that has to happen. Also, a woman that I've recently started working with, Autumn Brion. She is an art curator and artist based in LA, and we just worked together on a project called Don't Use Me, which was about the wage gap between black women and white men and like how that quantifies over time. And I could talk about it later because I want to get to the other one, but that was just an amazing experience. And like I'm talking about networking, a girl from the Bronx who went to school at USC. We were in the same like advertising agency program, but she's part of this cooperative called Zeal Co-op in LA. And I was like, I want to get into art curating. I don't have any background in art, so I feel like I like need to shadow someone that can learn like the formal education. So I hit her up. I was like, hey, is there anyone in your co-op that I can shadow? And she connected me with Autumn, and like me and Autumn just hit it off, and now I'm just like part of her team. Like I'm not even shadowing her, I'm just like part of the team now, you know. So just like that's like people are I think nervous and afraid to like network and to reach out to people, but there's a lot of helpful people out there, and I've been blessed that a lot of like women, specifically black women, has been like very, very helpful to me throughout my entire career.
But I love how you also enter the space like with intention and always like, hey, I'm looking to learn.
Yeah.
People are very receptive to that energy.
Yeah. Okay, flowers. So my mom, Autumn, my best friend Marissa, She's absolutely incredible. She is an artist. She's one of those people to me that I'm very inspired by because like she'll do something every day. Like if she's working on like, okay, I want to get better at painting, she will paint every single day. She will write every single day. She will like do music. Yeah, she's very dedicated to her crafts. And that's something I like just thoroughly admire about her. So yeah, that's 3 people.
Yeah, that's really nice. In what spaces would you say you want to see more Black women in? Like what type of positions and roles?
Well, definitely just like if I'm thinking on the corporate America side, right? Like on my team right now, which is about 300 people on our team for our client, I'm the only Black woman producer. So there's just not many Black female producers, and just getting more just Black women in the corporate space at high executive levels, and Black women on the creative team, because I think there's only one Black female like AD on the team, which art director on our team. I think outside of the corporate sphere, I think a lot more Black women behind the camera. So like a lot more Black female gaffers, DPs.
What's a gaffer?
They're usually the people that do like the lighting, like direction, things like that. Yeah, like my best friend Marissa, her sister's a gaffer, and she's like one of the few Black gaffers I know, and then even more specifically Black female gaffers that I know.
Do men usually do that?
Yeah, it's primarily a male role because I think it's, you know, you have to move lighting and stuff like that. So I think like people think, oh, women handling heavy equipment, they don't want them to do that.
We handle things we care.
Right, exactly. Even more care. It's like, I want to make sure this gets there safely and soundly.
Right.
Yeah, just behind the scenes roles. I think a lot of like, I'm like right now looking for like a Black female entertainment lawyer and a Black female accountant because I have a white woman accountant and I kind of want that to end. So
I feel you. I actually could recommend 2 Black women to you.
Appreciate you. So like those kinds of roles, are, I think as a creative, right? Like we are thinking about our creative output, but we do need like a team behind us, right? You need a lawyer, you need an accountant, you need an assistant, you need all these spaces. So how can we get all these like as Black people or Black women in these roles to help you propel and like get your business forward? Because you're not only a creative, you're a creative entrepreneur, which I think a lot of like artists and creatives need to like understand. You are your own business and you're your own brand. So you need to set up your business and set up your brand accordingly so people don't play you. I've had people play me like in just traumatic ways, and it's like that's why I'm like I need a lawyer. Like I need someone to look at my contracts. I need someone to make sure that I'm set up so if I do get into an issue with a client, like I have my paperwork together, you know. So, yeah.
And I also feel like we need more Black women in these spaces because what to ask? Like, it's hard to ask the right questions when you've never even been in that room.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't even know nobody that's been here. Like, how do I even know what to ask? And I feel like if we create more of a network, whether it's internal and external, we'll be more in a space, like, we're better equipped to, like, ask the right questions and get the right answers.
And have someone who's honest with you. Like, so 2 examples. As I mentioned, I worked at Blavity, and I was producing a photo shoot with different, highlighting different Black businesses in like 4 major cities: New York, Atlanta, LA, and I want to say Houston. And the only photographer, it just so happened to be that way, that we booked that was a woman, was based in Atlanta. And granted, yes, like Atlanta is more affordable than New York and LA or whatever, but her rate was the lowest than any of the male photographers she offered me a very, very low rate. So I just hit her up on the side. I was like, hey, you know, we have more money. Like you can ask me for like double what you just asked me. And she's like, oh my gosh, I really appreciate that. But cause it's like, yo, like people don't, you know, like if you're, as a producer, you're technically a gatekeeper. So it's like, if I have this opportunity to put more money in your pocket and let you know that, hey, like all these other men ask for like double plus what you just asked me for, like you should be asking for more. Same, and that also happened to me. I interviewed for a job. The Black woman was an HR person, and she was like, you know, just on the side, letting you know you can ask for like 20K more than what you just asked for, you know, and like that's so helpful.
It is helpful.
You know, so on both sides.
It's super helpful because you also know that no matter where you go, like the next step that you take, that could be your price.
Exactly.
Yeah, but we need more people in those spaces.
Yeah, to be able to, you know, help people, give people advice, tell them like, hey, you could be asking for more money, you know, you need more money in these, you know, in these roles. Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a bit about what inspires you.
Yeah, I think for me what my like the core of what inspires me is rooted in Pan-Africanism and using art and creativity as a way for liberation for Black people. So thinking about like whether you're Black in the Caribbean, in Africa, in South America, wherever you are, it's like how can we use these tools that are very native to us if we look at how African people were creating back then versus how before colonization started, like art and creativity was a very community-based thing. We didn't have this like soul genius as we do now, where there's this like, okay, we have like this one artist and they're amazing. Like it was a very communal thing when we think about like carnival and how that spread from Africa, whether you look at like even New Orleans with Mardi Gras and things like that. All of those performance-based things are communal, whether you're looking at the costumes, the dance, like those are all artistic mediums, and that started very early on in the beginnings in Africa. So, and that's part of like things that I'm interested in my curatorial practice. So yeah, I think what truly, truly inspires me is like how can art and creativity be a tool for liberation for Black people throughout the entire diaspora, and like how does that show up in terms of like, you know, modern day when we're thinking about the new trend of like Black girl luxury. Like as I mentioned, like I'm a person that like I like nice things. I want to go shopping. I want to get my hair done. I want to go to the spa. And we should be able to do that. Other races, other people are able to do that. And it's like, why can't we experience and show up in a luxurious manner? And granted, in a way that's like also like not too steeped in capitalism, because I don't want it to come off like imbalance where we're chasing money to the point where we forget, like we become elitist and then we're just a white person with Black skin, which I don't want to do at all.
Yeah,
you know?
Totally get that.
So being able to strive for luxury in a way that still holds our hands back to the community and to the culture, because I feel like a lot of spaces where we're seeing Black creatives do well, which is incredible, but I think we've sometimes reached a point where we forget about like, you know, the culture and the core people and what's going on, because we're around a lot of like Black people who are doing amazing things. And I have to catch up for myself, because it's like I went to college, I went to like a great school, and I received jobs right after college, and it's like, and I'm around a lot of Black people. It's not like I'm not, but if I'm in that circle, I can think like, oh yeah, Black people are doing well. We're all making great money. We're all creating great things, and forgetting that like, no, there's other people who are not in these circles who are Black and need that additional help. So just because you're a Black person around Black creatives who are doing well doesn't mean that there like are not other Black people who need that support. So I'm also being cognizant of that through this idea of like Pan-Africanism. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can really appreciate that you're talking about luxury not being a part of, always being a part of capitalism.
Yeah.
Because I really don't think luxury has a lot to do with money. I think it is more so about how we invest into ourselves and how we show up for ourselves. And I notice for me, the more I pour into myself, the more money I make. Like it's always the other way around. It's never like, how am I getting some more money? It's like, oh no, when I invest into myself, as in wake up early, take care of myself, drink water, get sleep, move my body, you know, spend time in nature, things like that, therapy. The more you indulge into yourself, I feel like that is luxurious. Having time.
Yeah, time is really,
It's luxurious. When you got time in the morning, you feel like luxury.
When people ask me like, what do I need? I was like, I just need time. Like that's really like the core of what would be time and resources. Like I can do anything I want with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, I 100% agree with you there. I do want to talk a little bit more about Pan-Africanism. What does that mean to you? Like, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I don't know if I mentioned this, but like I'm first gen. My mom's from Trinidad and my dad's from Nigeria. So like I grew up in a very like multicultural household while still being Black. And I think like in like middle school, people weren't like really clear on like what I was, even though I'm like, I'm Black and I don't see how that's confusing for people. But like being Caribbean and being African seemed to either be like confusing for people. Like one person when I was younger told me the only reason I'm Black is because my dad's African. Like me being Trinidadian does not count as me being Black. Oh. And then as I got older, it became this like weird, like almost like exoticizing my mix. Like, oh, you're Trinidadian and Nigerian. So I think I've reached to a point that's like kind of like doing away with people's outside perceptions of like what it means to be like a multicultural or like a mixed Black person, because both sides are Black. I'm not mixed with another race. I'm just Black, right? But like my Caribbean culture, even though it's similar, obviously we're diasporic, so we're gonna have roots to Nigerian, but it is different. And like same thing on the other end, but you know, me being Nigerian, and luckily like my parents are very like open to. I've traveled since I was young, so we're open to culture, we're open to traveling, and that's just been part of like our family dynamic since I was a very young kid. So yeah, Pan-Africanism from growing up in a household like that, I think is really just like me understanding what it looks like to be Black from all over the world. What does that the diaspora looks like? How does like our roots kind of like trickle into different areas, like food? Like if you look about like how food has like transcended in different communities throughout the diaspora. Like we have a lot of similarities with food. We have a lot of similarities with dance, with music, with all those things. So it's like allowing Black people to realize that like we're all interconnected, and using that as our power for unification, and also looking back at Africa as like, you know, our source. Like, yes, you know, you may be Puerto Rican or whatever, but like, how can we also like uplift the continent? How can we ensure that the people on yes, how can we ensure that the continent is getting the resources that it needs? And I'm happy like right now we're seeing like, you know, the wealthier Blacks like, you know, Meek Mill and Jay-Z and all these people like buying houses in Ghana, like buying property on the continent, ensuring that like, and there's a new with Afrobeats. I love what's been happening with Afrobeats because that has allowed the world to see the creativity coming out of Africa. So now like we're seeing fashion brands, as I mentioned, I used to work at the Folklore, and it's a company that houses luxury and emerging brands from Africa and the diaspora. So like seeing, you know, through Afrobeats, all the fashion stuff that's been coming out of there, all the filmmakers that's been coming out of Africa, and just like that creative ecosystem, and then that has allowed the rest of the Black world to like go back to Africa. Like I've never seen people like party to Afrobeats beforehand, like or to like African music until that became a big thing. Now you go to Africa beforehand, you go to Africa, they play hip hop, right? Which is obviously great, but like now they're like investing in their own music. You primarily hear Afrobeats when you go to Africa now, or on piano music, or you know, Afro pop or whatever. So yeah, I just feel like we're at a place right now, and these white companies are noticing it. So it's like if these white companies are noticing it, it's very, very important for us to ensure that we're not getting a second colonization. That we have money now compared to when back then. So like let's make sure that we are doing the financial investment back on the continent before they do, because they're coming, they're definitely going there. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of doing more, what does it look like to do more for her? Like, who can be our allies, and what are some practical ways that we can be doing more for Black women?
Yeah, I think like I would say twofold. On the corporation side of things, like, you know, we live in an era where things are done for like marketability. So, you know, International Women's Day or Black History Month, people are doing things to show up like, yeah, we support Black people, or we support Black women, but like, are you paying Black women? Are you hiring Black women? Do Black women feel safe in your spaces? Like, how is that showing up in like the day-to-day of your actual corporation versus like your Instagram page or your newsletter and things like that? So I would say on the corporate side of things, that's what's really, really important. Like, I don't really care about like your Black square on your feed. Like what are you actually doing, right? Like how, and even if you're doing like creative collaborations, like, you know, people were coming at Target because it felt like that was just like, they wasn't thinking about that collaboration. They had like kente kind of like patterns on their product, and then they made like a product that was like a 3-for-1, and it's like no Black person is using the same thing to shampoo, clean their body, and wash their face. Mm-hmm. Like that's like the person who was doing product development did not do their proper research.
I was just about to say, you know, there was no Black women in the room.
Exactly.
Like, to be like, no.
No, yeah, like we're not gonna do that. So if you're gonna do a collaboration with a Black brand, ensuring that, okay, how authentic is that collaboration? Where can you actually use those dollars also to help amplify Black people? Like, if you're gonna work with a brand, okay, can that money go to an HBCU? Can that go to a nonprofit that's actually doing something for the community? Like, where can these collaborations go further than just being like, oh yeah, I partnered with Bask. And it's like, okay, did you give money to Bask? Did you give money to the creators that Bask works with? Did you help provide like equipment? Like, what are you doing outside of like, yeah, exactly. What are you doing other than being like X corporation with Bask? You know what I mean? So that's one side of things that we can do more for her. And then on the other side, I think just like as an individual creative, figuring out ways that you can fund your projects to be able to get into those rooms. I think for me, like when I first was starting out, I was working a lot with my best friend Marissa, and you know, just putting our our minds, our funds, and our like community together to like produce projects, so that when I reach the point that's like I have a full portfolio, that I can hit up a brand and be like, hey, this is my aesthetic, this is like, you know, my vibe, this type of work that I do. I'd love to work with you on a project. And I think a lot of that is like finding groups and organizations like Scope of Work, which I was a part of that I mentioned. Also in LA, there's Young Creative Agency. There's a bunch of different groups that are intentionally working with like up and coming Black or POC creatives who have the resources and the network to help like fund or just like give you a space for your project. Sometimes you just need a space. You have the idea, you just don't have a space and the equipment. Like bare minimum, like that's what you need. And like when I was mentioning that photo studio, the part of that job that was incredible was like we could use this photo studio for free. Like high tech equipment, all of my coworkers are photographers and DPs. Like I did a lot of shoots there because it's like I have a space, and to shoot somewhere it costs bread, and not everybody has bread to be able to do that. So either figuring out how you can get into organizations that can get you spaces and resources for yourself, just like thinking about creative ways that you can use what you have, right? I know it sounds like easier said than done, but really thinking about either what you have or what does your community have. Like when you're coming up, like everyone knows that we don't got money like that. So hit up your friend. If you're a producer, all you need is a DP, a director, and a writer. Boom, you can make a short film. If you're a photographer, you need a model. There's a lot of models, especially in New York. Like there's so many people that you can collab with out here. That's like just do a couple shoots, build your portfolio, then take that portfolio to like work with brands to get your idea funded. Because that's also something I was strategic about. I was like, I have these ideas. I can't pay for them, but I have a portfolio, so I'm gonna pitch it to someone so that they could pay. Even if you can't pay me, pay for the idea, because I just need my portfolio to like build, you know?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so who do you think can be an ally? Like what are some types of groups of people that you think can contribute to like enhancing more for her, more for Black women?
I mean, I think everyone should be an ally at the end of the day, like, you know, whether you're Black man, white woman, Asian, whatever, you know, your background is, everyone should be here, especially if you live on the American soil, because we know that Black people built this country. So without Black people, a lot of what's going on wouldn't exist for you people. So it's like very, very important that if you guys are really gonna be allies, you really need to understand historically why you guys are here. Exactly. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I'm a person that like, I only really work with Black people. I only create with Black people. I don't even know Black people. So, I may know other people here and there, but like 95% of the people I know are Black. So I'm just here to ensure that us as Black people are allies to each other, because that also is an issue. Sometimes we have a lot of like weird diasporic wars, gender wars. It's like, no, at the end of the day, we're all Black. And going back to like the Pan-African mission, like we need to come together to ensure that we liberate ourselves, because nobody's gonna liberate us other than us, you know?
I really hope that there's a way we can edit this, and like every time we said Black people, we can edit it. So it's like Black people, Black people, Black people.
I count how many times I said Black people.
Yeah, Black people, yes, Black people.
Yes,
I love
yes.
it. Yes. I would like to circle back the conversation to funding, like for creative entrepreneurs, and you mentioned like different ways to still get your projects off the ground with little to no money. Like, what are some other ways would you say like can help people do that? Because sometimes it's really hard to start. And it's easy to nix an idea when you don't have money. It's like, nah, I'm not gonna do it. I don't got no money. But what are some ways that you can still push forward with different creative projects, even if you're low on funds?
Yeah, okay, I can give a couple of options. So one, depending on how you are, this worked for me. Like having a full-time job to fund my passions was very helpful. I know some people don't like balancing both, but to me that's have been helpful, especially because I work as a creative professional. So I've also been able to get like people to review my work, like my boss, like, hey, can you check out this edit? Like, what do you think about this? Like, I actually have people who, if it's not just the money that I'm getting paid for my job, but like people who have like the skill sets to be able to help me. So I would strongly encourage people to get a full-time job if you are that type of person, if you can balance both. If not, no pressure.
But would you say like any full-time job, or would you say a full-time job like that's actually in what they want to do?
I would say as a creative professional, you can get yourself into that space. Because also like when you leave and you do your own thing, they could be your client. Now you got a whole corporation as your client, you know what I mean?
Intentional network, I like how you brought it back.
Okay. Second, what's a new wave that's interesting, I haven't like fully explored, and I have my own like, pros and cons about it. But NFTs, I think as a creative, like figuring out a way to use that space to fund your work would be really, really incredible. So an example would be like my boyfriend, he's a screenwriter, so he's figuring out, okay, maybe I can like NFT certain parts of the script or whatever to be able to fund his film. Maybe if you are a filmmaker but you have photos as like stills that are part of your film, you can NFT those stills to help fund like post-production for the film. You can do like an NFT event, like before I got the grant, and I still may do this because I'm still trying to raise money for the film, but like thinking about doing an event that's NFT'd, or like maybe like sometimes with NFTs you can have like special access, I guess, if you're a special member. So if you purchase this NFT, you can be like an executive producer, you can have whatever top rights to the project. And those would be also ways that you can help fund your project. So NFTs is an interesting space where you can like play around as a creative and see like what works best for you. I would say trying to collaborate with brands would be another way to get funding. So if you have a portfolio, reaching out to an emerging magazine, an emerging fashion brand, an emerging beauty brand, and being like, hey, I have this idea. Some of these places, they may not have the funds to pay you, but they can pay just for the idea. And that way, like, you have funding for the film you wanted to do. You just got to slap, XYZ brand on it, but at least you have the film and you have like creative control of that film. And then if you want to do a traditional like crowdfunding, I've never done that personally, but I do know that works for some people. And like I've also like donated to people's crowdfunding. It's like, oh, this was like a really great video. This is a great idea. Like here's some money to help support your idea. And I think if you are going to do crowdfunding, really, really being strategic about like the places you post it, how you're like your content rollout around the crowdfunding, because you really want people to see it. You really want people to have an understanding about your intention behind your project. So I think crowdfunding is kind of hard, but if you're able to like take time to like think about your marketing and content strategy around it, like you can raise a lot of money.
Yeah, those are some really great resources for the free.
Yeah. I also do creative consulting, so if everyone needs tips.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just want to shout out Bask Studios for sponsoring this space.
Yes.
This is awesome. And I just want to ask you, what does it look like to bask? Like, how do you bask?
Like bask in like greatness or what?
All of that. Like whatever basking means to you. Basking in greatness, basking in luxury. What does that mean to you?
That's a hard question.
Are we basking?
Are we basking? I think that's the important question first. It's like, are you actually basking? Are you creating the space to bask? And I think I think that I am beginning to. I think I don't do a good job at like celebrating my wins. Like I'm always kind of going, so I'm unable to fully bask. But I do understand the value and the importance of like basking in my work, basking in everything that I've been able to accomplish, and like all the wonderful people that I've met. I do well with like gratitude. Like I like try to do like 3 things I'm grateful for each day, and that we talked about abundance. Like I think that has aided in like this like path of abundance that I've been on. So like just being very grateful, just every day finding things to be grateful for, and then hopefully getting that time to be fully able to bask in my greatness and abundance. And like I love vacation, so going on vacation, laying in the sun and being like, thank you God, we're here, we made it.
I also think the work that you do is in a very unique pocket where a lot of your work is recorded and it's pictures, it's videos.
Yeah.
So it might be helpful, a suggestion to just always look at your work.
To go back,
look at your shit. Just look at the stuff you've done to remind you that you that girl, and just to remind you that, oh, I think I done did something. I think I done did something cute.
Yeah.
So just small things like that could probably help you celebrate your wins a little more.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
Because we got to be basking. Okay, so that wraps up our last and final episode of More for Her. Thank you so much, Raven, for being a part of this. Like, your story was so motivating, very inspiring, and now I'm about to create some shit.
Yes.
I'm about to create something, and I'm about to tribute it to Black people, all
Amen.
different types of Black people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for putting us on to what it looks like to be a part of the diaspora. I think a lot of people don't know that, and just thank you for sharing your creativity, your knowledge, and just your talents with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tell the people where they can find you.
Y'all can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is Raven Charisse, RavenCherisse. I have a pink wig on, so that's how you know it's me. And then my website is www.ravenirabor.com, so RavenIrabor.com.
Thank you so much. I wish I had like real flowers to give you, but we creatives, we can imagine it.
Yeah, it's here.
Flowers, they smell good.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.